Hello and welcome to Quick Bites, where we talk about firefighter nutrition in 10 minutes or less. My name is Megan Loutz, and I am a registered dietitian that specializes in first responders. And today we're going to talk about how to boost your energy, especially on shift work, where you're tired all the time and everything sucks, right? So the big thing here, usually the knee-jerk reaction for energy boosters for the first responder is caffeine, right? It's a relatively quick fix. It's pretty accessible. And the thing with caffeine is that caffeine doesn't actually provide you energy in the literal sense, right? Calories is the unit of energy that your body uses to be able to do work, right? And caffeine in and of itself does not provide calories. Now, of course, some energy drinks with sugar will, but caffeine actually reduces fatigue by binding to adenosine receptors in the brain. And over the course of the day, as you get further and further away from sleeping overnight, right? Adenosine tends to build up in the brain and causes fatigue and sleepiness. Caffeine will bind in place of those adenosine, adenosine, and will reduce those feelings of fatigue. However, it doesn't provide your body fuel in the form of calories. So sometimes there are some strategies that we can make in the diet to help boost your energy without having to add an excess of caffeine. Now, of course, I would be remiss to say that, yes, we can do this through diet, but if your sleep is absolute garbage, like there's only so much I can do, right? From a dietary standpoint until we figure out your sleep. And let's talk about that. So we do see a 24% increase in hunger after a bad night of sleep, right? We see 18% decrease in the hormone leptin, which is hunger suppressing. And we see a 28% increase in ghrelin, which is hunger stimulating. So that leads to significantly increased hunger the next day. And then it also tends to lead to worse food choices, right? Usually if you're tired and you're cranky, we're not going for a salad. We're going for like a donut or something sweet with maybe some caffeine, right? So, sleep is a big factor here for not only for appetite, but also for energy. And you're looking at a minimum of 7 to 9 hours of sleep per day. And the reason I say per day is that naps actually do count, because a lot of people, regular generic professionals will tell, firefighters and shift workers that, hey, you need to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep or you're just not going to feel good. And it's like, what do you want me to do? That's not how my job works, right? So if you can a nap 20 minutes or 90 minutes, right? Try and get that in if possible. I know it's not always reasonable. 20 minutes is more of a brain break. You're focusing on your breathing. 90 minutes is going through all 4 of the sleep cycles to optimize, how you'll feel after. But again, anything in between that, you might wake up in some of that deep sleep, rapid eye movement phases and not feel very good and feel a little groggy. So you need to play around with the timing. Usually 20 minutes and 90 minutes is what's recommended. Ideally, if possible, you should be trying to aim for a minimum of 5 to 6 hours of uninterrupted sleep. That's not going to happen at the station with the lady in the ceiling, but at home, if that's possible, that will help make you feel a little bit better if you're not even getting that. Also, keep in mind that there are some things that can impact your sleep quality. Caffeine, nicotine, and alcohol. If you're doing that prior to bed, it might not prevent you from falling asleep, but it will screw with your sleep cycles and then you'll feel like crap the next day and you'll reach for more caffeine, right? So caffeine, alcohol, and nicotine, cut those things 5 hours before bedtime, 6 hours before bedtime to see if it improves your sleep. Now, if we've got sleep covered and you're still like, I don't feel great, are you skipping meals? And intermittent fasting has been a pretty popular diet as of lately, and it's a good tool to help reduce your calorie intake if your goal is weight loss, right? However, some people overcompensate. So sometimes when people skip breakfast or skip breakfast and lunch, it leads to a higher calorie intake overall later in the day. So an extra 200 calories at lunch in one study and an extra 800 calories at dinner if lunch and breakfast were skipped. So the other thing that skipping meals can lead to is poor quality food choices. And anybody who's been in back-to-back calls on a medic unit and had lunch delayed by 4 hours knows this, right? By the time you get 4 hours past lunch, like you probably do not want to eat the healthy thing that you packed. You're just going to grab something from fast food and it's going to be a bad time by then, right? So if possible, I know regular meals aren't always realistic on shift, but having a go bag with some snacks that can at least cut the edge, right? So that you don't eat everything that's not tied down when you get back to the station or back to your house, whatever the situation is. But applesauce pouches, protein bars, shakes, trail mix, big bars, Cliff bars, dried fruit, whole grain cereals like Cheerios, mini wheats, jerky. These are some things to keep in a go bag on whatever unit that you're on, just so that if you do get a little hangry, you have something on hand and you don't have to stop. Because again, if you stop, it's usually going to be a bad decision. So if you're feeling a little low energy, especially later in the day, consider adding more regular meals back in and seeing if that helps improve your energy levels. Other things that can tank energy levels is cutting back to on a low carb or a no carb diet. Now, this is subjective to the individual because I have worked with people who just prefer lower carb diets and they feel great. And that's just what they like to do. So we stick with the low carb diet because it's what makes them happy, right? So the other problem that I see is that people who are forcing a no carb or low carb diet because somebody told them that that's what they needed to do to get healthier. And then they're bouncing back and forth on no diet versus low carb for years and years and years and years. So if you've been on and off and on and off and on and off a low carb diet, it's probably not the right fit for you, at least in this season of your life, right? Low carb or no carb diets do have some evidence behind them too, that it does impact energy levels. There may be difficulty concentrating. You might have a low mood or hanger is like what I like to call it, where you're so hungry that you're just mean to everyone. And then poor workout performance. Usually dietitians, especially sports dietitians, will recommend having a carbohydrate, a fruit, a grain before a workout to optimize workout performance. And I've seen this by just adding an applesauce pouch or two before my first responders workouts. We've actually gotten some of our guys in Fairfax off of pre-workout by doing that. Now, am I claiming that an applesauce pouch after 4 calls, a day where you had 4 calls after midnight, got no sleep, that an applesauce pouch is going to power you through a workout? No, you're going to feel like crap. But if it's just like, you've been taking pre-workout because you've always taken pre-workout, it actually might not be the caffeine that you need. You might need a carb to actually boost your energy and performance during that workout. The other thing is just spreading carbs over the course of the day tends to optimize energy levels for a lot of people. So trying to get 1 to 2 servings of high quality carbs with each meal, and a higher quality carb is typically high in vitamins and minerals, and then also fiber, usually fruits, veggies, specifically peas, potatoes, corn, whole grains, beans, and legumes are great sources of high quality carbs that will help with your energy levels. And then, of course, the last thing is hydration. And I know firefighter hydration, we're just beating you over the head with this, right? But it can make a difference in your energy levels. If you're not very good at water, you're probably not going to feel very energetic, and it might even feel more hungry throughout the day. And what we're going for is at least 92 to 125 ounces of fluid per day. Ideally, most of that is water, but coffee, tea, juice, and then water from food also counts toward this. If you're not a big water fan, I'm perfectly fine with flavoring it with like Crystal Light or drink drops or like some low sugar, no sugar options there. I'm not worried about artificial sweeteners so long as you personally do not get headaches or GI issues related to that sweetener. I'd rather you get hydrated and actually drink what you need to drink if you're really not a water person. So again, aiming for 90 to 100, roughly 90 to 125 ounces of fluid per day. So to boost your energy, what we're looking for is 40 to 50 ounces of water by 1 p.m., spreading that water intake over the course of the day, trying to get those regular meals to improve your energy levels, and then try to cut back on caffeine, alcohol, and nicotine to optimize your sleep, aiming for about 5 to 6 hours minimum per day when possible, especially off shift. Energy comes down to typically sleep quality, skipping meals, carb intake, fluid intake, and then caffeine moderation. If you have any questions, shoot me an email, megan@rescuerd.com, or follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok @RescueRD.